Christmas 1941. Almost all of the European continent had fallen to Nazi Germany's blitzkrieg war machine. Most of the territory was occupied by German troops and subject to the authority of the ruthless SS and Gestapo. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the German advance on Moscow was halted by the bitter Russian winter and a fierce last-ditch Soviet counteroffensive. In the West, the nighttime bombing of London by the German Luftwaffe continued furiously, and the bombing of Pearl Harbor only weeks earlier had brought the United States into the war. World War II was now truly a global conflict. On January 20th, 1942, Hitler and a select cabinet met at the Wannsee Conference in Berlin, but not to plot military strategy. They met to plan the final solution to the Jewish question. Since the beginning of the Nazi Party, one of their core beliefs was that the Aryan, or true German race, must be purified so Germany could recapture its rightful position as Europe's leader. The final solution agreed to at Wannsee was to eliminate all of Europe's Jews. Those fit to work would be sent to labor camps. Those unable to work would be killed immediately. Waves of Jews were rounded up and packed into railroad cattle cars for transport to concentration camps.
The trip was unbelievable. I cannot describe you that horror, what was going on in that train. And finally, after 4.5 days when we arrived, we had to get off from the train very fast. That was night. And when the door was opened, they were screaming at us, "Schnell, schnell."
Of the 3,000 people that arrived each day at Auschwitz, only 400 were selected for labor.
As I was standing there, not knowing what's going on and screaming all over the place and barking, the dog were barking, I saw my father standing there with the man, so miserable. I have never seen my father the way he looked. He was a tall man, 6'2", very strong, and he always knew what to do. That was the first time I ever saw him not knowing what to say. And I felt so sorry for him, I wanted to run to him and hug him and say something encouraging. When the SS stepped before me with his rubber stick, pushed me back and screamed at me that I should get back to the group where I was standing. So I couldn't even say goodbye to my father.
And then they showered us. They let the water on. They disinfected us. And then they took us out and they gave us some striped clothes. And I think we were numb. We just didn't know what's going on. And then they marched us to the barracks.
The barracks were long, huge barracks. Cold. All I had is no underwear, just a striped suit, which was very thin, very cold. And we had to stay, we got a piece of bread once every 24 hours, 48 hours, excuse me, with a little coffee. And sometimes we would get a little soup, which was practically water. And the kapos and the head of the barrack was very brutal. He was beating people.
More than 2,000 people were murdered every day.
The next camp was a men camp. So between us was electric wires, but you could look over. And there were a man like a skeleton with a white sheet over sitting, and he was singing all day long. Gorgeous, beautiful opera. He was an opera singer. And I never forget how one SS gone close to that fence and started to scream at him to stop, and told him that, why are you singing? You are already half dead. How can you still keep on singing? And that man were sitting there ignoring the SS completely, and he was just singing and singing till one day he disappeared.
On June 6, 1944, D-Day, the Allies invaded France and began the liberation of Europe. The tide shifted against Nazi Germany. Despite imminent defeat, the final solution remained a top priority of the Nazis. The concentration camps continued to operate around the clock. 6 million Jews, 3.5 million Russian and Polish prisoners of war, 400,000 gypsies, and thousands of others, all murdered by the Nazis right up until the camps were liberated by Allied forces.
Somebody walks in, he says, the Americans are here. And then another man came in who could walk. He says, the British are here, the English are here. I couldn't believe it. And a few people came in, he says, yes. And all of a sudden, I could hear loudspeakers go, you are free, in different languages, in the Yiddish language, in Polish, in German, in French, different languages. You are free. You are free.
After 35 years, silence, I just couldn't even talk about it. But after 35 years, the first time when I heard about that, there are people who are writing books about that the Holocaust never existed, or telling about these lies. I felt I do have to come out, no matter how hard is that for me, and I want to tell to the whole world. And my sister wanted to tell to the whole world. That was her last words, actually, to me, that to tell the whole world. So I really wanted to tell to people for the reason that should never happen again.